you know, there's going to be an heir to MAGA. We say, MAGA will continue for as long as they can continue to milk it
and
until it doesn't work anymore.
Probably you're going to have a MAGA movement led by
whoever is next in line. Whoever ends up being the next one. J.D. Vance or whoever.
Whoever can get their attention.
Whoever can claim it, I think. I think it's going to be really claiming it. MAGA is now part of the lexicon.
Yes.
And that's what needs to be built. And I feel like we should be building it now, particularly while Bernie is still here and still fighting for it in real time.
Yeah.
And we have to name it and we have to have that brand. The reason we need it is because we have to sell it.
Yeah.
We have to sell this vision to people. That's why AOC and Bernie are going out on these rallies, is they're selling it to these audiences. People, just like you're saying, there are progressives in the Midwest of the United States, rural progressives.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure some brilliant, young, talented minds. How do we elevate them and hear their voices and let them make a contribution to this as well?
Just be a good communicator with others.
Yeah.
To support what we support.
Yep.
And through that, the name will arise.
When I say what Bernie and AOC are needing, what that movement is needing, that brand identity is what it's needing. We say it needs a name. Yes, it does need a name. It needs that, you know, MAGA, the red hat, you know, everybody, it does.
Yeah.
It needs that name, but it needs an entire brand identity that goes along with
maybe
that.
Branding is a little easier for people to conceptualize.
Definitely. And Trump, we know from his entire life in business, from the 80s, starting in New York and what he built. He really did build a giant branding empire.
Yeah. I would say it wasn't real estate he masterfully did. It's branding he was an expert on.
He was obviously failed businesses and
so it's not
all
like,
of that. I'm not saying that all of that always works.
But the reason people don't even think about that stuff when they think about him as an expert businessman is because branding.
Yeah,
because he's so good at branding.
It's really true. And I think the left has to acknowledge that. I think the left needs to do a lot better job at acknowledging that.
I don't even think the right even understands. Like, I think MAGA, like I told you earlier.
I'm sure they get it.
MAGA's probably, at least in politics, one of the greatest branding moments ever. Like, in the history of ever. It is such an amazing...
It's incredible.
Yeah, not that I like it. Obviously, we don't like it, but...
I don't agree with it, but you can't deny.
Yeah, like if I'm in a class teaching about branding, you have to talk about how successful MAGA was.
But there's so much to learn from that. So Bernie and AOC have to, and all that go along with them and that movement, must, to our point that we made, that people are agreeing with in large numbers, that it needs a name, it needs that brand, it needs the strong brand identity to go along with it.
Yeah.
That Trump branding, its uniform and the slogans and the messaging and, you know, what it looks like visually and all of it. Yeah. And it stayed, and it's entirely missing on our side, I should say. So, I mean, obviously it's not named at this point. We know that it is a progressive movement.
Yeah, it's a progressive movement.
It's been accused of being socialism, which is kind of a bad word. And we heard all kinds of recommendations about
some rather funny ones,
possible names,
pretty good ones,
some hilarious ones, some good ones as well. That list is compiling. I'm keeping track of that. We have to get to a point where we have some sort of clear, simple branding, a la MAGA, in the way that they do.
And I think the distinction I want to make is that we're not trying to copy Republicans. There was a short that we'd posted that somebody said something along those lines. We're not trying to make a cult. Right.
Yeah.
It can be absent a strong man, right? Like a strong man leader, but it has to be a wave of support. And it's much easier to get people who aren't interested in politics on board, which you'll need them if you just can give them a simple, very digestible, because I can articulate all of what Bernie thinks and supports in the progressive movement and probably convince a lot of people. I would also need an hour. And I don't have an hour. I have 1 minute.
Right.
Right. So what can I deliver to a person just in passing? A very simple, clear, and concise point that has all the meanings attached but something digestible to non-politics people, which is what MAGA did. It made people who didn't give a shit about politics all of a sudden MAGA.
Right.
Right. So that's kind of the point. I don't need to convince a progressive who consumes politics content. I know where you think.
Right.
I don't have to worry about you.
Right.
It's everybody who isn't us.
Good point. That's a good point. Right. It's already called the progressive movement. Well, okay, that's fine, but that hasn't worked. It hasn't worked calling it the progressive movement. Obviously somebody's tried that branding. That word has been out there for a while and it just isn't working. And then I also want to address the point of some interpretation of this kind of naming was something like naming a political party. And I'm not really making the assertion of there's a creation of a political party here. I'm talking about the movement and the beliefs of the movement. One of the name ideas of this movement was something like the 99%, or maybe just the number 99.
Yeah, the 99.
And that
is not a party.
Right. So that isn't intended to be a party. It's kind of intended to be that indicator, that symbol of what the movement believes.
I do like it. It's like, oh, are you part of the 99? And someone's like, yeah, dude, I am. Like, that's easy to get across to somebody.
Exactly. So it's that sort of simple kind of messaging and branding. And it's clear. I can see somebody with a baseball cap with a 99 on it from across the room. And I know what that means.
And you immediately know what they're talking about.
Right. It might be some font also, you know. But that's it. I mean, obviously, that's not the only thing it needs. It needs those beliefs and values that you talked about in the video last week. But we have that.
But if I can get somebody to buy into even talking about the 99, we've got them. But we need that I'm wearing the 99 hat to get them through the door.
Yeah.
Like right now, there's a movement and there's no door. It's just a wall.
Also,
so we need a door, which is the 99 hat.
Yeah, well, definitely.
That's the way to think about it.
Yeah, 99 hat, 99 shirt, anything that asks the question, what is that? What is, what are you a part of? What does this movement stand for? Well, 99, we're one of the 99%, or in other words, the top 1% and that extreme wealth that they've accumulated and continue to accumulate at even greater rates than we've ever seen.
And it's easy to get someone with that too. It's like, oh, you're part of the 99%. What does that mean? It's like,
you are too.
you are too. I don't think like a billionaire should be able to, buy away something or buy the government. I think that's bad. I think your vote should count. And that's an easy message to sell. And you ready for that? I did it in 20 seconds. Only because
I
had the 99%. If I had to explain that first, I'm lost.
And by the way, we're not saying that should be the name, but we're using that example.
Very easy example.
Because that did get a lot of updoots. People liked that one.
People liked that one, yeah.
Yeah, so this is interesting. In politics, identity wins. Branding wins. People vote for who they know and who they trust. They vote for that authenticity. Trump...
Perceived authenticity.
That perceived authenticity is probably a better way to say it. Trump certainly has it. That's the populism part of it. Bernie clearly has it. AOC clearly has it. And those are talents that they have as human beings that they bring into their movements, into their respective movements.
Yeah.
So I think we already have that part. We have, they are the authentic voices.
Yes.
Them and others, not only
plenty,
but they are the kind of the two top with, Bernie being
the most famous.
The godfather.
I guess is the best way to put it, the most famous.
The most famous of those voices, but there are many.
Which is part of why we reference them. Other people made a point of like, there's others. I'm like, obviously it's going to be a lot more than just them.
Yes.
But I'm not going to get someone to consider what I have to say with Greg Casar, much as cool as he is. Nobody really knows who he is.
Right.
They know who Bernie Sanders is.
Right.
And I can leverage his popularity and how famous he is.
I think that you have to. He's given so much. He's given his entire life to this cause.
Yes.
Starting from mayor of Burlington, Vermont.
All the way. And he was just a crazy...
Before then.
Yeah, just same guy.
And he's always been the same guy. And it's
getting arrested at civil rights protests.
Really incredible. Really, really incredible.
Same guy.
So he has truly lived it and embodied it. And he's certainly the hero of the movement. And I would hate for Bernie's time on earth to come to an end at some point. And there is no movement that can continue to honor the sacrifice is really what it is. He sacrificed his entire life for this movement.
I suspect whatever comes of this movement, whether it's today, tomorrow, a year, 10 years, whatever, he will be one of the founders.
He will be considered that.
Yes, because he, without a doubt, rekindled that flame in 2016.
I would love to still have him here
to see it.
Well, even more to see it, but to guide it.
Help get it started.
Yes, to guide its founding vision. And so, again, he's kind of already done it, but to help it to gel.
Really gel.
So that brand can continue. Like I was making the point that when Trump dies and there's going to be an heir. Am I allowed to say that on air?
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
Too late.
Okay. There's going to be an heir to MAGA. We say, MAGA will continue for as long as they can continue to milk it. And until it doesn't work anymore.
Reality will probably make it hard at some point, but that's a long way out, or it would take a lot of reality to shake that.
Right.
It would take like a J.D. Vance is in charge of the economy and like milk is now $40 kind of. It would be really shatter some of the core believers. We would need some hard reality.
So some really hard times.
Otherwise, you're going to have a MAGA movement. Led by
whoever is next in line. Whoever ends up being the next one. J.D. Vance or whoever.
Whoever can get their attention.
Whoever can claim it, I think. I think it's going to be really claiming it. That's a part of why I think that there's urgency about this. He's 83 years old. He's still incredible. And so while we have him and while we have his gifts and what he's given to help us all to put in action, to put this in motion. And people mention, well, there's all kinds of organizations out there already, like Justice Democrats and et cetera. Et cetera, et cetera. There are a number. And I thought to myself, okay, well, yeah, there are, I guess. But then I thought to myself, but I hadn't heard of any of them. And I hadn't seen anybody wearing a baseball cap that says Justice Democrats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no national brand. There's no in the fabric of our consciousness. It's not part of the lexicon, like MAGA is now part of the lexicon.
Yes.
And that's what needs to be built. And I feel like we should be building it now, particularly while Bernie is still here and still fighting for it in real time.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about when we say name and brand identity, so the whole thing can continue, because
we don't want another chance at it to dwindle. I have another example I want to give people. Huey Long. You ever heard of Huey Long?
I feel like I have heard the name Huey Long.
You probably have heard of Huey Long.
I feel like that name.
So he was the governor of Louisiana from 1928 to 1932. Okay. So he was an interesting character. One of the quintessential populists.
Huey Long.
A very divisive character. I'm not, championing him.
Right.
But in terms of being a populist, this is kind of the guy. So he's famous for the quote, "Every man a king." From that stems everything.
Right.
Every man deserves higher wages, better care, better housing, better food, better freedom.
Was he?
Because every man is a king. So do you see?
And that was 100 years ago.
100 years ago, every man a king.
And that branding
still is. We talk about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So, and he was a governor and then a senator of Louisiana.
Okay.
And that's it.
I mean,
he was assassinated in 36.
He was
35.
He was assassinated.
He was assassinated.
Oh,
so, but my point that it doesn't necessarily have to be MAGA. It doesn't have we don't have to copy MAGA.
Yeah.
It can be every man a king, because from that everything extrapolates.
That's the concept.
It needs to be a small quote, an acronym,
a few lines,
like 3-4 words that is intriguing enough to another.
Yeah.
That asks, what do you mean by that? Yeah. Now you've got them.
Right.
Because the moment they ask, they're going to listen.
What's the 99 movement?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Boom.
Yeah. And the moment that they engage you in conversation and ask about it, they've allowed you to explain.
So hopefully they're open to hear it.
That's the point. If they're willing to ask you what every man a king, the 99% MAGA, what does it mean? What are you talking about? They're willing to hear some politics jargon from you for a little bit. And we have all the good messaging, like we have everything like that. Like billionaires shouldn't control the entire federal government. You probably should be paid a little more at your job, and that's probably a good thing.
Right.
It's probably a good thing that you have better access to cheaper and more effective healthcare. So once they open the door, then we have everything we need.
Yeah, sure. Then you can start the conversation and then you can explain this movement and what it's about and what it stands for. And Huey Long, then. So good to know.
Let me 200,000 people attended his funeral.
200,000 people attended his funeral. He was assassinated.
He passed a redistricting bill to oust a opposition judge, and then he was ambushed by the judge's son-in-law.
Oh, that's who killed him? The judge's son-in-law.
But yeah, Huey Long. So divisive figure, not necessarily making a claim on his politics.
Right.
It's not my attempt here. It's simply that if you're so good at talking that you're nicknamed the Kingfish and your populist quote is every man a king, are you kidding me? You know how good that is? You're a king, so you deserve extraordinary health care,
right?
Better housing,
right?
Better education,
yes,
better freedom. Like, and then you're like, hell, I do deserve those things. And then they go tell somebody.
Yeah.
Damn, I do deserve those things. You're right. Damn right I do.
But they can start to claim some identity to that. They can believe it themselves, and then when they believe it themselves, then they themselves can sell it to somebody else.
And I think,
and then they can grow.
I wanted to give another example. I think it's just as masterful as MAGA. Every man a king.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's really good. So you wanted to say something about it?
Well, just by the way, Huey Long, he rose to national prominence. He was a left-wing populist, right? He rose to national prominence during the Great Depression for his very vocal criticism of FDR and his New Deal for not being radical enough. Just to tell you where he stood on the spectrum. He wanted even more.
Yeah.
That's pretty, it's pretty wild.
I wanted to make that point.
Yeah,
we don't have to try to copy MAGA. That's not it isn't about copying that
MAGA.
That might have been the point that maybe came across. It's about making a small quote or acronym that's so compelling that a non-politics person asks you what that means. Or someone who isn't a Bernie supporter immediately asks you what you're talking about.
And then it gives you a chance to say. It gives you a chance to talk about it.
Yes.
If you don't get
Every Man a King is also amazing.
Yeah, as an example of something that's a branding line. That's really stuck and worked and obviously helped this guy get all the way to governor and a senator before he was assassinated.
And then 200,000 people came to his funeral, which is a lot.
The population of Louisiana at the time he died.
1936 was 2.2 million.
So 1/10 of the entire population of the state went to his funeral. So that says something about how popular he was.
Yes, that goes to show that
that's wild.
Wow, crazy that popular he was. So that's the point. Like it's.
But back to the branding though. That's about the branding.
It's just having a very small. It needs to fit on a hat. Is a good way to think about it. Not that we're going to make a hat,
right?
But it needs to fit.
Yeah. You know, the name or it could be a short slogan or they could be.
Every Man a King fits on a hat.
Yeah.
That's a good way to think about it. Just how short it needs to be. Because if it's too much text, it's too small.
The name and some of the slogans, or maybe the main slogan, if there is one, like America First might be considered
fits on a hat.
MAGA's example of a slogan.
So that's the kind of thing that you need to be able to achieve. Will probably come organically.
Yeah.
But it needs to be stimulated. The dialogue needs to be stimulated for someone to have some stroke of genius.
And the branding has to be sticky. It needs to be
very sticky.
It needs to be the kind of thing that, wow, that resonates. It's clever.
It practically
and I get it.
needs to be propaganda. And
it should be thought of.
And that's okay, because propaganda isn't good or bad. It's just a messaging technique.
I mean, it's marketing.
And if you want to have Bernie's politics in this country,
we have to sell it.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to propagandize a little bit.
Yeah, you know what? That's the main thing. That's the point I think that we have to drive home, that I felt like was missing in the discussion in the comments on our last video. And I feel like that is the point that we have to hit really hard, is that we know that we have great ideas. We know that this will help a vast majority of people and workers and everything else. And we have to name it and we have to have that brand. The reason we need it is because we have to sell it.
Yeah.
We have to sell this vision to people. That's why AOC and Bernie are going out on these rallies, is they're selling it to these audiences who are getting fired up.
We're going to need more than just New York City Democrats or it's people from
everybody.
Boston. Like, we're going to need the rural people in Arkansas and the people in Florida and the people in Montana and the people in Oregon.
A part of the organization that we talked about, we thought about how do we elevate people, just like you're saying. There are progressives in the Midwest of the United States, rural progressives.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure some brilliant, young, talented minds. How do we elevate them and hear their voices and let them make a contribution to this as well?
a part of the point that why it's critical that this isn't just like appealing to like hyper progressive college kids.
Yeah, not just that. We need more than that.
Arguably the best governor in the country is the governor, a Democratic governor of Kentucky.
Go ahead and say it.
R+30 Andy Beshear, right? So if you can, and he's fairly progressive, even as Democrats go, he's quite progressive. You can even win in red areas with fairly progressive talking points because it's not
That's the proof.
progressive. It's just pro-working person and everybody's working.
Yes.
Republican and Democrat.
It is.
So we have that weapon as well. What we desire helps everyone. Everyone benefits from being paid better. Everyone benefits from being able to afford to go to the doctor.
Well, the 99 does.
That's everybody but Elon and all the rest of the billionaires.
Right.
But yeah, so I just wanted to make that comparison, and we have to be able to sell it.
Yeah.
Also.
So what's the call to action after this little exchange that we've had now? What are we asking for in the comments?
It's you know, I guess we suggest everything you want in the comments, but when you talk about what Bernie has to say, maybe you even avoid saying his name at first to certain people. I avoid his name like crazy.
Because they might go straight to socialist.
Exactly. Right. So I just say, you know, it's crazy that we do all this hard work all day and we get paid shit. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy that we can't afford rent. It's crazy that we can't afford rent.
I can't afford any rent around here. Even if you and me work together, I can't afford rent for a 1-bedroom. That's crazy.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It's like, I sure hope I don't get sick because I don't have healthcare.
Yep.
I sure hope I don't get hurt.
Right.
Right? People will be like, yeah, that's nuts. So it's in them. And then on your own, in your own life, come up with a fun way to kind of name it or address it, right? And that's how it spreads. Because you might not even realize that you've created something. It's your friend at work who's like, doesn't really know politics, but he's, you know.
Yeah, if somebody's been able to sell this to somebody else.
That might be where it starts.
How did they sell it?
Exactly. Well, it's like they talk to, you know, friend at work and, you know, they're not really into politics, but like, they're also pretty pissed that everything's so damn expensive. And I'm like, hey, man, you don't get paid enough. That's crazy. And maybe you, to your friend at work or your colleague at work, whoever, right? You say something that would be akin to Every Man a King or MAGA, but you say it in passing, trying to be creative and an easy way for him to understand or her to understand, right?
Right.
What they've just heard is, oh,
some light bulb moment.
you didn't even realize you just gave them the name to the movement. They're going to go to their friends outside of work.
So you're asking if anybody has accidentally.
So this is the thing. Don't put the pressure on yourself to be the messiah of the movement.
Let's pay attention to what's working.
Just effectively message to those around you.
Tell us what messaging has been effective to the people around you.
Share it so other people can have good ideas.
Okay.
But the most important thing is the name will probably start on accident. Not from some Bernie supporter like tweeting it out and then adding Bernie.
Or Bernie might name it.
Maybe. I don't think he will. I mean, maybe he says something that's mind-blowing. But again, even if Bernie says it, I don't think it'll be someone at the rally who carries it. I think it'll be an outsider who is like, who has a revelation.
Oh yeah.
When Bernie says 3 words, it all clicks. It gels instantly in their mind, and because it was so powerful, that gelling moment, they're the very first of whatever this new movement is called. Now, technically, you could immediately get 1 million people to join, but the first person to call it that. And then they're going to go on Facebook or they're going to go on Twitter and be like, oh my God, guys, just be an effective communicator with others. And the person you communicate to will tell you what the good messaging is.
So be on the listen.
Yeah.
For what you're hearing back from people.
Don't be the Bernie supporter and make that decision because we're not talking to you. That's not our messaging.
More listening.
Get your friend to agree with what you have to say. And then when you say the 3 words that click for them, that's when you've done it. You won't know when you've accidentally said what the movement's name is my point.
So that's what people need to get.
In all my rambling.
That's what people need to be
just
paying
be
attention
a good communicator with others.
Yeah.
To support what we support.
Yep.
And through that, the name will arise.
And then come to our comment section and talk about what you.
Yeah. And then come tell everybody how your name is actually better than all their.
That's a good call to action. We will continue on this name and brand identity thing because I think it is the most under-discussed issue as far as this movement goes at this point. It's so critical.
I agree.
I'm signing off.
Signing off.